Good morning, everyone. You may be seated. My name is David Frazier, and I have the privilege to serve as the Associate Dean of the Tippie School of Management. And on behalf of the faculty and staff of the Henry B. Tippie School of Management, I welcome the soon-to-be graduates, families, friends, and significant others to our 2015 spring commencement. It's particularly gratifying to see so many children in the audience. And graduates, congratulations on modeling the value of education for the next generation, because we do need to keep this process continuing. We need to continue to educate. So thank you for bringing families. This event celebrates the great achievements of the graduates from all of our Tippie School of Management MBA programs. These programs include the full-time MBA, the MBA for professionals and managers with locations in Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, and the Quad Cities, the executive MBA program with locations in Iowa City and Des Moines, the Hong Kong MBA program, and the Chimba MBA part and full-time programs in Italy. The diversity of our programs is a strength that allows us to reach and touch many stakeholders, particularly in this period of persistent global change. In this regard, we offer one MBA degree, the University of Iowa Masters of Business Administration, in all of these programs, and united by a common vision, goals, and value proposition. Now, as you can see from the flags displayed here today, which represent the current countries of origin of our new Tippie graduates, the Tippie MBA is truly an international program dedicated to producing global managers with the capability to compete in today's global marketplace. It is wonderful to have family and friends here from all over the world, along with our faculty and staff, to acknowledge the accomplishments of this year's graduates. The ultimate objective for our graduates is to add value with integrity, innovation, and impact to their families, the companies that hire them, and to society at large. You, the graduates, have earned this celebration as a culmination of your hard work, and we are very proud to add you to the worldwide Tippie alumni family. At this point, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce my colleagues on the platform. Please stand as I read your name. Sarah Fisher-Gardio, Dean, Henry B. Tippie College of Business. Perry Glasgow, Vice President and Controller, Harley-Davidson Incorporated, our keynote speaker for today. Barry Butler, Executive Vice President and Provost, the University of Iowa. Kurt Anstreicher, Senior Associate Dean, Henry B. Tippie College of Business. Jennifer Blackhurst, Visiting Professor and Faculty Director of the Strategic Innovation Career Academy, and that academy is transitioning as of next fall, to be the Business Analytics Academy. Thomas Gruca, Professor, Director of the PhD Program in Marketing, and Faculty Director of the Marketing Career Academy. Phil Jones, Professor, Management Sciences. Amy Christoph Brown, Professor and Departmental Executive Officer, Management and Organizations. Mark Penno, Professor, Accounting. Tom Reitz, Professor and Faculty Director of the Finance Career Academy. John Solo, Professor and Departmental Executive Officer, Economics. And now staff of the School of Management. David Dayak, Assistant Dean of the Full-Time MBA program. Colleen Downey, Assistant Dean of the Professionals and Managers MBA program. Don Kluber, Assistant Dean of the Executive MBA program. Jan Fassi, Business Director of the Marketing Career Academy. Jana Cloke, Director of Career Services. Michelle Pontarelli, Director of the Quad Cities MBA PM program. Nicole Vogt, Director of the Cedar Rapids MBA program. Steve Waite, Business Director of the Strategic Innovation Career Academy. Mark Winkler, Director of the Business Solutions Center. Catherine Zaharis, Business Director of the Finance Career Academy. And Michael Williams, Director of the Des Moines MBA program. I would now like to ask the Dean of the Henry B. Tippie College of Business to say a few words of welcome and then introduce our keynote commencement speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dean Sarah Gardio.
Good morning to everyone. I want to extend a hearty welcome to all of you who are visitors here, who are friends, family, and loved ones of our graduates today. This is always a highlight of my year, this particular ceremony, and one of the best things about it is the coming together of a whole lot of people who allowed our graduates to be here, and that includes my colleagues on the stage, who are exemplary, who it is my privilege and pride to get to work with, but it also includes you. It took us all, and I want to thank you for being here to participate in this. I do have a couple of words for the graduates. You know, David Frazier mentioned that we've got 3 different programs that are mixed here, and one might say that there are as many goals of these graduates as there are individuals. But if I could throw things into 2 buckets, one of the things that I can say about people that choose to come back and do an MBA program typically have 1 or 2 big goals in mind. And for many of our graduates, the idea of the MBA, with the breadth and the opportunity that it provides, is to invest in themselves in a way to come back and really hit a reset button and really maybe change the path in a significantly different way than what they were doing before they came to us, and to be able to walk out the door and do something that they could only imagine before they started the program with us. For some of the graduates, it's a little bit more simple in the sense that they were already on their path. They were in a company or an industry that they're already excited about, and what they needed was that MBA to really help them step on the accelerator, open some doors that wouldn't have been open for them as easily, and it's a matter of just moving more quickly and more progressively on a path that they had already imagined and already been on. Regardless of which of those 2 categories you find yourself in, this is obviously a time to not just reflect on what you've done for the past couple of years in our program, but where you're going and what your goals and accomplishments might be. What's your vision? What are you heading for here? And I just want to tell a story that's a favorite of mine, and one that I like to remind myself of, because I think it really encompasses this idea of what our goals should be as we're thinking ahead and thinking about what kind of mark we want to make in the world. And the story goes like this. Rabbi Mordecai, sadly, dies and goes to heaven. And he's kind of waiting around for the interview with the big guy. And he's got a lot of time to think about this. You know, he knows he's going to be quizzed about, you know, what happened in his life on earth and, you know, what he accomplished, and, you know, is he going to be able to stay in heaven or, you know, take another path? And he starts getting nervous about it because he's got a little bit too much time to think. So he starts thinking about all of the people that he considered great in his life and comparing himself to them. And what he imagines is that when he steps up in front of God, God's going to look down at him and say, why weren't you as wise as Solomon? Or why weren't you the great leader that Moses was? Or why didn't you leave a legacy like King David And he starts to get really concerned because, in comparison to those great people in his mind, he is just absolutely sure that he's going to come up short. And he gets a surprise. And the surprise is when he finally makes his way up through the queue and he stands there in front of God. God looks down at him and he doesn't say, "Why weren't you Moses or Solomon or King David?" He says, "Why weren't you Rabbi Mordecai?" And that is it. We are all just called to be the very best people that we can be. And we all bring different gifts, different experiences, different challenges to that. As surely as our thumbprints are different, the kinds of impact that we can make, the heights to which we can raise our own accomplishments is completely individual. And so that is a thought that I want to leave with you today, is to reflect on how you can be your very best self. The second thing that I want to leave with you is, as you're having this thought about your goals and ambitions, is to think holistically about the mark that you want to make as a human being and not just as a business person. And that may be a surprise coming from the dean of the business college here. This morning, as I was working out over at the Student Rec Center, I saw yet again another tribute to David Goldberg, who recently tragically passed away accidentally, CEO of SurveyMonkey and the husband of Sheryl Sandberg. And I've heard a lot of these over the last week, and every one of them talks about what a phenomenal businessman he was. He was visionary. He knew how to disrupt industries. He was out there literally at the top of his game in terms of what he was accomplishing in his professional career. And they always say, great husband and father, and a really good guy. You can't hear a tribute to him without those last two pieces being thrown in. And you really can think about what you're going to accomplish in all of those ways. And I would certainly encourage you to make that kind of mark in your own unique way as you move forward. Now, it is my privilege to introduce our speaker today. Some of you know I'm a motorcycle person, all right? And I will tell you that when people find this out about me, they have two questions. I always get them. It's 100% of the time. And the first one is a little bit annoying to me. So when they find out that I like to ride motorcycles, the first question they always ask is, well, do you have your own do you have your own motorcycle, or do you ride behind your husband? I asked my husband once, I said, when you tell people that you ride a motorcycle, how many of them ask if you ride behind me? So he never gets that question. I don't know. It's the damnedest thing. Anyway, so that's the annoying question that I get. And yes, I have my own motorcycle. So the second question is the one that actually is a source of a bit of shame and embarrassment for me. Because what they say is, what kind of motorcycle do you have? They really don't want to ask me that question. What they want to ask me is, do you have a Harley? And I don't. And so I always have this moment, where I just have to kind of confess that, I'm not cool enough to have a Harley. So these are the two questions that I always get, and my dream is that someday I'm going to be able to say, I have a Harley. And then all that other stuff will go away. It is my delight to introduce our speaker today from Harley-Davidson. Perry Glasgow is the Vice President and Controller of the Harley-Davidson Corporation in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He has held this position since January 2010, and he is responsible for financial planning, financial reporting and analysis, and cost management for the company. Prior to that position, he was treasurer, where he was responsible for all treasury, cash management, and capital market activities. In addition to his treasury activities, he also served as interim CFO and interim president of Harley-Davidson Financial Services, Inc. He began his career at Harley-Davidson in 1992 and has held a variety of positions there, including vice president for strategic planning. Prior to joining Harley-Davidson, Perry worked in public accounting at Ernst & Young and ITEL Corporation, where he held various financial positions. He received his BBA from the University of Iowa and his MBA from the Kellogg Graduate School of Business at Northwestern University. Perry is a member of the advisory board to the American Financial Services Association Fixed Income Investor Conferences, and he's a member of their Financial Relations Committee. I'm also pleased to say that he is a member of our School of Management Advisory Council, and I'll throw in this last personal piece. If anyone wants to hook up with Perry at a Hawkeye football game, you walk into the tailgating section and you look up at the flags and you find the Harley flag with the Tiger Hawk underneath it, and that's where Perry is going to be for every home game. It is my great pleasure to introduce a wonderful alum and a great friend of the Tibby College of Business, Perry Glasgow.
Get your motor running, head out on the highway, looking for adventure, and whatever comes our way. Yeah, darling, go make it happen. Take the world in a loving embrace. Fire all of your guns at once and explode into space. I like smoking lightning.
Morning, everybody. Now that's a heck of a way to start a celebration, so you got to keep this going, because that may be the best part of the speech. Anyway, thank you, Sarah, for the nice, warm introduction. I'm extremely honored to be here with you today and have the privilege of addressing this year's graduating class. However, Sarah, you missed the third question that everybody generally asks, and that is, do you have a tattoo?
I'm not saying.
Okay. Thought I'd try and put her on the spot for a second. Anyway, in May of 2001, I was in a very similar situation as everybody in the audience. I was sitting in an auditorium as a new business school graduate, listening to a speaker I'd never heard of before, when all I really wanted to do was walk across the stage, receive my diploma, and celebrate with family and friends. Since most of you probably feel that same way today, I'm going to keep my remarks very brief. I will talk a little bit about my career and offer up some very simple advice on becoming a better leader. But first, I'd like to congratulate all of you on getting here today. You are graduating from one of the best business schools in the country, and you should be very proud of this accomplishment. Congratulations. However, I'm sure you also realize you wouldn't be here today without the help, support, and encouragement from your family and friends. So let's give them a round of applause to show them how much we appreciate their support and sacrifices. Okay, I'm going to first start off by talking about my career path. I consider myself to be very lucky. I believe I work for the best company in the world and have a great job. And during my almost 30-year career, I've worked for only 3 companies, and in each and every one, I've enjoyed each and every one of them. To give you a feel how I've approached my career and managed my career, I'm going to equate it to how people plan motorcycle rides. There are as many different ways to approach a ride as there are motorcyclists, but I'll categorize them into two main categories. The first type is a rider who picks a destination and plans every step of the ride in advance. They make all of their hotel reservations, determine where and when they will stop for breakfast and lunch, where and when they will use the bathroom, which dealerships to stop by and visit along the way, and probably most importantly, which drinking establishments they will frequent that night to relive the day's ride. If they run into a detour, they will adjust but get back on their main route as soon as they can. This type of rider is focused and has a plan that gets them to their destination. Now, the second type of rider is a little more laid back. They still pick a destination, but most of the trip is determined day to day. They won't have specific stops along the way, but instead will stop when they see something interesting. Breakfast, lunch, and even bathroom breaks can be alongside the road. They can take back roads and look at detours as new adventures. They don't follow a detailed plan, just a general plan that gets them to their destination. And on occasion, will even change their plans and arrive at an altogether new destination. So which path did I take with my career? I took the more casual approach, which I might add is the same way I planned my motorcycle trips. But when I graduated from Iowa in 1986, I never dreamed I'd be a controller, treasurer, CFO, or president of a company. In fact, those positions were the furthest thing from my mind. All I really wanted to do was graduate, move to Chicago, and have fun. But yet I was indeed, I was able to achieve these career milestones. So how did I get there? I believe there were 4 key factors that helped me to achieve success and that others can use to achieve success in their careers. First, you need to have a very strong work ethic and desire to get things done, but at the same time, you need to respect the needs of others along the way. It's not about getting things done at all costs, it's about getting things done the right way. Second, you need to have an unyielding focus on personal integrity and honesty. Don't ever compromise your integrity and honesty for anyone. And if you ever find yourself in that position, I advise you it's time to find a new company. Third, you need to be very flexible and look for opportunities that challenge you and allow you to make a difference at the company. Also, don't be afraid to take risks along the way. My career has been marked by a lot of risk-taking. When I left Ernst & Young, I went to work for ITEL Company, which was 1 year out of bankruptcy. And when I left ITEL, I went to work for Harley, where we were starting up a finance company where Harley was only an equity investor with no guarantee of future investments. And it worked out great for me. And lastly, and I've had a lot of this, you need to have luck in your career. Sorry about this. So anyway, the bottom line to all of this is there is no right or way to plan and manage your career. You need to select an approach that works best for you, consistent with your character, personality, outlook on life, and career aspirations. Now, like me, I'm sure all of you are proud of your accomplishments, but as graduates from one of the leading MBA programs in the country, I'm sure you have a desire to become a great leader, whether at a Fortune 500 company, in private practice, a family business, or as a stay-at-home parent. But why do we need to be great leaders, and what does it take to be a great leader? Well, the first question for me is rather simple. Great leaders create environments that foster employee engagement, which leads to satisfied customers and improved business results. And satisfied customers and strong earnings are what we strive for in the business world. The second question, however, is a little harder to answer. And although I could discuss several factors I think it takes to be a great leader, I'm going to highlight 2 that I'm focusing on to improve my own leadership effectiveness. The first factor for me is self-awareness. You first need to understand yourself and how you impact those around you to be an effective leader. You can't truly lead others until you know yourself. This may sound simple, but as a leader, it's oftentimes difficult to seek candid feedback from your staff and peers so that you can improve yourself and ultimately your organization. What I found to be helpful is just simply asking for the feedback and the improvement ideas. However, for that to be effective, you need to first develop trust. You can do this by providing a safe environment for them to give constructive feedback and then demonstrate your commitment by actually acting on their recommendations. And to me, that's the key point that many people and organizations miss. It's not just about listening to the employees, it's also about acting on those recommendations. And once you've established trust and they see that you will act on the feedback they've given you, you will get the feedback you need to become a much better leader. Now, the second factor is servant leadership. I'm a very big believer in the philosophy of servant leadership. But what does being a servant leader mean, and how do I think it can help us to become great leaders? Simply put, a servant leader is one who puts the needs of others first. Servant leadership turns the traditional leadership model upside down. Instead of having the leader at the top of the pyramid, servant leadership turns the pyramid upside down with the leader on the bottom supporting the organization. This is exactly what we do at Harley-Davidson. We have an inverted pyramid structure where we as leaders do all we can to support the needs of the employees. I'm going to highlight this with a couple of examples. At each of our plants, every employee on the production line can and is required to stop the line if they experience or see issues. It is then the responsibility of the employees, the team leader, the plant manager to resolve the issue before restarting the line. In essence, the employee's needs have to be resolved so we can produce quality motorcycles. This philosophy was implemented several years ago, and today our plants are more efficient than any time in our history, and our employee engagement scores continue to trend up, although we still have a lot of work to do. Now, the second example is going to be a little bit closer to home for everybody here in Iowa. I'm sure everybody knows Dan Gable. Growing up in Iowa as short as I am, it was natural that I would gravitate towards wrestling. So Dan Gable has always been an inspiration to me. His ability to lead young people to be the best they can be and the results he's achieved is truly remarkable. In his recent book, A Wrestling Life, he shares a story of Barry Davis and his struggle to make weight on the eve of the 1982 Big Ten Championships. As the story goes, Davis was struggling to make weight and decides the night before the team is scheduled to leave for the Big Ten tournament that he'd had it and he wasn't going to wrestle anymore. Gable tracked him down at the Hy-Vee and found him with a couple of bags of groceries in his hands. And instead of yelling at the young man about letting his teammates down, coaches down, fans down, Gable asked him, "What do you want to do?" That right there is true servant leadership, focusing on meeting the needs of an individual wrestler before his own needs are met, or in this case, the needs of the team. This may be one of the reasons Gable has been so successful over the years. He puts the needs and development of the wrestlers first, and by doing so, he ultimately achieves team and individual successes. In this story, Davis goes on to win an NCAA title, and the team wins its 5th straight NCAA title. So in my view, self-awareness and servant leadership are key factors in becoming a great leader. Today, I view myself as a good leader, but I have a lot of work to do to be a great leader. But the challenge to me is worth it to improve myself and Harley-Davidson. Now, the final piece of advice I have for you is to have fun and approach work with a good sense of humor. Work can be stressful, and a little humor can relieve the stress as well as lead to greater productivity. Our recently retired CEO, Keith Wandell, is a great leader and probably the best leader I've ever worked with. He led Harley through some pretty rough times, and he focused the organization on employee diversity and developing great leaders. But he was also very good at making the workplace fun, while at the same time delivering an impactful message. So I've spent the last several minutes giving you advice, so I'd like to share a little bit of the advice Keith gave me a few years ago. In 2009, I was having a hard time making a decision on whether or not I should shift gears and go from being the treasurer of the company to being the controller. Keith strolled into my office to see if he could help with my decision-making process. And at Harley, we don't have doors, so there was no way for me to keep Keith out even if I wanted to. So he listened to me for a few minutes and then said, "Perry, you have been a fantastic treasurer, and you can continue to be a fantastic treasurer and retire from Harley-Davidson knowing you had a tremendous impact on the success of the company." So with that statement, I was feeling really good about myself, chest pumped out, thinking this was great. Our new CEO had just told me how great I was. And had he stopped there, I probably would have stayed in the treasurer role. But he didn't stop there. He continued on by saying, "Or you can grow a backbone and take on the controller position and show us what you really can do." And that's how I became the controller of Harley-Davidson. So in conclusion, pick a career path that works for you, get to know yourself and how you impact those around you, and dedicate yourself to being a great servant leader. Thank you for listening to me today. I again would like to congratulate all of you on your accomplishments, and I wish you the best of luck in your careers. And if in the coming years things get rough, just remember our motto at Harley: screw it, let's ride. Thank you.
Provost Butler, will you join me at this time, please? Now's the good stuff. Will the candidates for the degree Master of Business Administration please rise? Provost Butler. These candidates, having completed all the requirements for the degree Master of Business Administration, are recommended to you by the faculty of the Henry B. Tippie College of Business for the conferral of the degree.
On the recommendation of the faculty of the Henry B. Tippie College of Business and by the authority vested in me by the Board of Regents, State of Iowa, I confer on each of you the degree Master of Business Administration as qualified and designated. Congratulations. Will the graduates please be seated? The graduates will now be introduced by Michael Williams.
As our graduates are introduced today, you'll notice that some are wearing gold cords on their robes. These cords identify those graduates whose high level of academic achievement in the MBA program has earned the designation of graduating with distinction. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce the Tippie School of Management MBA class of 2015. Families and friends, your applause and cheers are strongly encouraged. This is a time for celebration. Alyssa Adams. Evan Ulrich. Rick Anderson. Eric Ashby. Karen Austin. Christopher Baker. Kapil Balani. Damodara Batula. Robert Beckman. Neil Behere. Lisa Bender. Douglas Bosson. Lisa Brown. Matthew Brown. Manuel Camacho. Catherine Carlson. Jennifer Karp. Dinesh Balani. Anbarasu Chandran. Josh Chapman. Charlie Chiapetta. John Childers. Brian Clark. Matthew Coffey. Adam Comsenius. Aubrey Cara. Oliverio Covarrubias. Chi Alice Swee. Alan Dantos. Ryan Delaney. Angela Dietrich. Jerem Dilworth. Donna Dolan. Ethan Domke. Gui Ern Dong. Amber Dawn Doyle. Daniel Dungan. Phil Edmond. Michael M. Garten. Brian Angler. Gregory Fett. Ben Fish. Michael Flagel. Patrick Forner. Vigneshwar Gade Ganapati. Fred Gingrich. Michael Giudici. Dennis Goad, Jr. Robert Godberson. Chandra Mohan Goyendrajan. Anuja Goyal. Ryan Griffin. Jason Hazy. Samuel Hanselman. Tammy Harmson. Sarah Haugen. Mary Beth Hayes. John Herendeen. Chris Hoffman. Nicholas Howell. Brendan Hughes. Joshua Jacobs. Peter Jeffries. Julie Jensen. Michelle Jensen. Scott Jensen. Guang Jin. Kimberly Johnson. Neil Joss. Nate Kading. James Kane. Matthew Carlin. Pradeep Katupali. Mary Kempf. Carol Kersey. Justin Knight. Anna Conchar. Priya Kondasani. Jeff Krafka. Dave Cronus. Girish Kulkarni. Rajiv Kumar. Quan Lee. Jeremy Leifker. Cedric Leviner. William Livingston. Heather Loftsgaard. Uni Lowe. Katie Lukin. Rachel Mawson. Kiran Madasu. David Maddox. Pragya Malhotra. Jennifer McCarran. Justin McDermott. Michael Meineke. David Meyer. Sampada Matre. Ann Mikesell. Derek Miller. Joseph Miller. Margaret Mills. Sanjay Mittal. Elizabeth Moore. Bryce Morgan. Aaron Morrow. Matthew Mowry. Jeremy Murdoch. Irakli Narizdazeh. Mark Nelson. Shivraj Nimbakar. Cheryl Nuno. Jeff Upsall. Ann Parmley. Prithviraj Patankar. Deepak Patnam. Valerie Petrulovich. Roberto Pino. Adam Price. John Raftis. Nitin Rajasakar. Edward Redding. Beth Redfern. Michael Redmond. Eric Reinsch. Ashley Rooney. Peter Roth. Anthony Royster. Karen Rubel. Amitesh Sahu. Dylan Salisbury. Bob Sanders. Michael Siebold. Jared Shekel. Scott Schmidt. Martina Schubert. Tracy Scott. Thomas Seberg. Nimal Sharma Chapagai. Freeland Shaw. Austin Shears. Sarah Shelton. Carl Shepard. Philip Sherman. Allison Smith. Joshua Smith. Rachel Sola Valencia. Sandy Stewart. Seth Stone. Ryan Swalve. Arti Tiruvingandaram. Larry Tumen III. Jeffrey Chepkis. Lawrence Trozen. Kyle Tucker. Smita Varghese. Sunita Vasudevan. Nicholas Viner. Jitu Virwani. Eric Wagner. Adam Walter. Aaron Warner. Rachel Holland Watson. Jennifer Weber. Tim Westbrook. Chad White. Alan Weens. Alexis Woodley. Mei Ching Yao. Daniel Yu. Inchekube Injini.
I was getting worried we wouldn't have any selfies, so I'm glad the last guy in line did the selfie. We're going to give the last of our graduates just a couple of minutes to cycle through. They're getting their pictures taken in back there as well. But I would just like to take a couple of minutes to say thank you to so many people in this School of Management organization. 2 years ago today, my wife and I were furiously packing boxes back in the Buffalo, New York area to make the move out here. And the last 2 years have just been a lot of fun. I think we have accomplished a lot together, but there are so many players in what we do here. First of all, of course, we have to thank the faculty. Without them, we wouldn't have the transfer of knowledge that takes place so effectively and we know is going to serve our graduates so well throughout their careers. And then there's the tremendous staff of the School of Management, and it has been, particularly this last year, very exciting as we have a lot of initiatives underway, a lot of great things that are going on in the school, and most of, I think, actually all of the people who have been orchestrating this event today are staff from the School of Management. There were many on the auditorium floor in addition to those that were represented here on the platform. And there's one final graduate that I have to recognize. This person is graduating in a little different way than our MBAs. But as I came on board, I had a person on my staff who basically helped me get oriented to everything in the Associate Dean's role. And she has been responsible for detail after detail after detail of things that go on, usually very much in the background. But she coordinates everything that has happened today and leading up to today. And I just want to recognize Sue Leischer. Sue, I'm going to ask you to come up here, please. And Sue doesn't have a Harley to do it with, but she's about to ride off into the sunset in the southwest corner of Utah. And we are very much going to miss all of the coordination and all of the support that she gives to us in the school and for me personally. And the one little detail that I managed to sneak in, I don't know if she noticed me or not, but this was a detail especially for her. Graduates, the real key to success is having a top-notch admin. Okay. Graduates, will you please rise? Audience, please join me in congratulating the MBA class of 2015. Graduates and audience, you may now all be seated. Graduates, as new alumni of the University of Iowa and the Tippie College of Business, I hope you will remain connected to your alma mater, to each other, and to our global alumni network. I also hope you will remain true to the 3 I's of the college: integrity, innovation, and impact. Samuel Johnson, the 18th century English poet, essayist, and moralist, said, "Integrity without knowledge is weak and useless, and knowledge without integrity is dangerous and dreadful." I trust you will build your personal and professional lives on a foundation of integrity, striving for innovation, and effecting a positive impact in your personal, political, social, and economic spheres of influence in our world. Make us proud to count you among the ranks of the Tippie MBA alumni. Graduates, you are now part owners of the great University of Iowa Tippie MBA program. Go out with confidence and invest the currency of your education. I would like to once again thank our speaker, Perry Glasgow, for his inspiring comments. Perry, will you please join me at the podium? I'd like to give you this expression of our appreciation for your presentation today. Thank you, Perry. As we leave today, I ask that the audience please remain seated while our graduates exit. If you are going to join us for brunch, the event is in the Coral Ballroom, which is down the hall to the left as you exit the conference center. Thank you all for celebrating with us today, and we trust you will enjoy the remainder of your day together. Thank you.